For nearly 2 decades, journalist Avery Haines has covered every manner of local story in and around Ontario's capital city. So it was a bit strange to learn that she packed up her camera and headed for the front lines in Mosul, Iraq, during a massive battle to end the 3-year occupation by ISIS. And yet, that's just what she did, producing, on her own dime, the documentary 2 Kilometers to Terror, Life and Death Under ISIS. And we're pleased to welcome Avery Haines to our studio to tell us more. Welcome back in one piece, I'm glad to see.
Thank you.
That is a beautiful thing. How in the hell did you end up in Iraq?
You know, I had started a number of years ago. I had realized that there were stories that I really wanted to tell that were not in the scope of local television. And local television has a really big importance in our communities for sure. But you know, I really felt as though there were stories that I wanted to tell and that I wanted to know for myself. What
was calling you from over there?
Well, you know, I first did 2 documentaries on Liberia. I went to Liberia. I volunteered with my wife, who's a doctor, with a medical organization, and I did work with that organization in Liberia. But I also, in the interim, had become pen pals with Charles Taylor, one of the worst dictators, warlords in Africa.
You became pen pals with him?
With his wife.
Oh, okay.
Jewel Taylor, who was running for president of Liberia. So I became pen pals with her. I flew there, shot my interview with her, and did a documentary on my meeting this woman who's had a front row to one of Africa's darkest periods.
So that presumably developed in you some greater interest in international affairs, and you had to go scratch that itch?
I felt as though, you know, what's been happening in Iraq has been horrifying. And Mel, who has a huge humanitarian interest, was looking at doing some volunteer work. Initially, it was going to be an IDP camp, a camp for the hundreds of thousands of internally displaced people who'd had to flee Mosul. And so up until 2 days before we were supposed to leave, the goal was that we would go, Mel would help people in this camp with any kind of ailments that had come in from not having access to a doctor for 3 years. I would shoot some stuff, but I would also help her. So I really had no idea what kind of documentary I'd come out with, if anything.
But you get lots of footage.
But I get lots of footage.
Figure it out when you get back.
And figure it out.
Right. When were you there?
Pardon me?
When were you there?
We were there just weeks before Mosul fell, before liberation was complete. So the documentary actually aired on the day Mosul was liberated, which the timing is unbelievable. But 2 days before we were supposed to leave for this IDP camp, which is in Erbil, which is in Kurdistan, very, very safe, very safe, we get a call that another agency really needs to have a doctor, and it's at the front lines, and can we go? And so Mel is like incredibly excited. You know, this is exactly what I need to be down there doing this. We're going to be living in a mosque, protected by the Golden Division of the Iraqi Special Operations Forces, Division 2, and a couple of Marines who are running this trauma stabilization point, which is essentially the first point of any kind of medical care for people who are fleeing ISIS in Mosul. So,
had you ever reported from a war zone before?
Nope. I'm a local reporter who has never been to a war zone before, no.
When you told your folks are still around?
My mom,
Your mom is still around. And when you told your mom, hi, I'm going over to Iraq to report on the most godforsaken neighborhood in the world today, what was her reaction?
Well, my mom knows me, and she knows Mel. And, you know, so a year ago, Mel and I got married, and we had our honeymoon in North Korea.
What's her real name, Mel?
Melinda. Melinda okay. Brecknell, Dr. Mel. So we had our honeymoon in North Korea, and Iraq was our 1-year anniversary.
You had your honeymoon in North Korea?
Yes.
What is wrong with you?
Would you not take the opportunity to go to North Korea? Maybe not right at this moment. A year ago is a bit safer.
Maybe not for a honeymoon. I mean, I could see. Okay, anyway, let's not get off track here.
So Iraq was our 1-year anniversary, and my mom was terrified, and I didn't tell her that we were going to the front line. I told her, I let her know that we were going to be at the IDP camp. That was very safe, and when the plans changed, I didn't feel like it was fair to tell her that.
Avery, why did you do this on your own dime?
I didn't feel, you mean financially? Why did I pay for it?
Yeah.
I didn't think about the finances. I went with a humanitarian organization that I volunteered with. In the same way that lots of people do volunteer work, they pay for it. I just happened to take my camera with me, but I was shooting, but I was also helping doctors. I was holding up bloodied body parts. My job was to take all of the intakes, so the children who came in with their legs blown off, the mothers who had lost all of their children in crushing injuries from airstrikes from coalition forces. I mean, I was documenting their injuries and you know, helping them into the ambulance before they went on to further care.
You had never seen anything like this ever before, obviously, right?
Right.
This is the worst, probably the worst stuff you've ever seen in your life.
100%.
So it's, I think, a reasonable question to ask whether or not you came back with, you know, some kind of PTSD or something like that. Did you look into that? It's funny. Maclean's asked me to write an article about my experience covering this, and I felt really awkward about doing a first person from it because there were so many incredible stories of bravery and survival and joy and happiness that I witnessed, that to turn it into how I was impacted by it felt a little bit self-indulgent. It's not my tragedy to be affected by. 100% it isn't. It is a tragedy beyond anyone's scope. I mean, the stories that I heard are horrific. They don't haunt me because they're not mine. They haunt me that anyone had to go through that. There are a few things when big groups of children would be brought in by Humvee. So you can hear the sound of this Humvee coming around the corner, and it is a very distinctive sound. So everything is kind of normal in this mosque. That was an ISIS mosque until 3 months before we were there. So ISIS would have all of their recruiting sessions in this mosque. The area where we slept, this little room, we're sleeping on mats. I'm here, Mel's here, Iraqi soldier with his AK-47 is here beside me, and we're all, this is the way we sleep. This room that we slept in was their plotting room, where they would plot what kind of evil, dastardly things they would do to the people in Mosul. We have talked enough about this. We got to show some of this, okay? Here's a clip from Avery Haines' documentary. Let's roll it, please, Sheldon.
What about music?
Oh, music? They will punish you. It's by hurt your ear.
Your ear?
Yeah.
What do they?
Just put a small stick in your ear.
If you caught.
If you just got you listen to music.
Toys for children to play with?
No toys.
Anything with a face?
No face. No face. Because they think.
Can you explain that for me?
Because they think that when you paint a pictures or something like that, or toys with a face, they think you will like make her like God.
That it's disrespectful.
Yeah. I don't know how they're thinking.
Tell us about this man and the circumstances he was living under.
We called him Obama because he looked like Iraqi's Obama. He loved it. He spent 3.5 years living in a city that had been turned into an ISIS nightmare. And I don't think that many people are aware of the fact that Mosul, this vibrant city, had been held hostage, that the people, hundreds of thousands of people, held hostage by ISIS, who came in. They were initially welcomed because they thought this was going to be a better way, and it wasn't. And over that 3.5 years, they were subjected to the most obscene kinds of rules, where they hired women, ISIS women, to go out and bite other women if any of their arms were showing. So, but biting and ripping out parts of their skin when they bit it. They had, obviously music was not allowed, smoking wasn't allowed, toys were banned, so children couldn't play with toys. Women covered even their eyes, so the women would be falling down the street because they'd have the full burqa plus grating in between so they couldn't see. I mean, and the stories that were told from people coming out about life under ISIS, people, I mean, unbelievable. The things that you couldn't even imagine you would think up in your worst nightmares was done to these people.
That is a more civilized moment from your trip over there. Let's play something that was a lot less civilized. Here's you in the back of an ambulance, and we're going to talk about this guy that they're working on in just a second. Sheldon, roll this clip, please.
But this patient is different. A nail through his bandaged neck, an overwhelming stench, a burned leg. For some reason, the Iraqi team moves away from this patient as the volunteers try to stabilize him.
Beat. Yeah. You know, maybe his guy is bad guy. You know? Okay. You don't care for this? I know.
Yeah. MSF doesn't mind, they take everyone.
Can I have one person to ride me back? I'm going to make sure we go to the right place.
Severely dehydrated, but air entry bilaterally.
The man's clothing, his freshly chopped hair and beard, his hand movements, the fact he had no ID, no family, refused to give his name, all raising suspicions that he may be an ISIS fighter. A couple of the theories, that he was captured and tortured, or that he accidentally detonated an IED.
Was anybody able to confirm if he was in fact ISIS?
The general consensus was that he was ISIS.
Okay, so I gotta ask, there you are, in an ambulance with a guy from ISIS. What's going through your head?
You know, at the time, I was just thinking, wow, I'm driving through a war zone in an ambulance with the incarnation of evil. Even in that moment, I thought the guy at the front is an ex-Marine with the word infidel tattooed on his arm. This man's head is nestled in the lap of a Jewish woman, gay woman, and he's got
Mel.
That's Mel. And he's got an American-Canadian journalist filming him in this situation. And I felt like there was some kind of victory in that. I actually felt there was some victory. But the funny thing, Steve, I don't know why I did this. It was really bumpy. The roads are obviously cratered like crazy. And I kept putting my leg against his stretcher to stop him from bouncing around so much. So somewhere, I don't know, maybe humanity always finds some reason to...
Well, that was consistent with what the doctor, I mean, because you asked the doctor as well, you know, you realize you're helping save some of the enemy, not just some of the good guys. And he just, I mean, you can tell us his answer. He couldn't go there, right? You just can't think about that. He's a doc.
Yeah.
He's got to save everybody. You've
got to save everybody, and it's not your place, from someone in a medical community, is not your place to decide who's right and who's wrong. It's a life that needs to be saved. It's a body part that needs to be fixed.
But you do know that if that ISIS fella on that stretcher knew who was treating him and who was filming him and who was driving him, his head would have exploded, right? I mean, you represent, all of you represent everything he hates in life.
Oh, and there's no doubt in my mind that if we were in opposite situations of power, I'd be wearing an orange jumpsuit about to have my head cut off, 100%. I'm aware of that.
Did he make it?
I don't know. There's a really strange thing that happens where there's, you know, with all of the international organizations like MSF and others that are in there, NGOs, have a very different perspective than what the Iraqi government and the Iraqi military have when it comes to what should be done with suspected ISIS fighters.
So we don't know if he in fact was tortured or what his backstory was?
No.
Impossible to find any of that out.
Impossible to find out.
Yeah. Avery, I wonder when you finally came, so this was in the spring that you were over there, right? When you finally came home and sort of well, I'm wondering if there was a sort of forgive this expression, a come to Jesus moment, for lack of a better expression, where it all hits you, what you've been through, what you've seen, what you're trying to chronicle. Did you have a moment like that?
I found it really challenging when I came back. And so I landed on a Sunday night. There was a big offensive that happened on Monday. So I started doing day of news for City with my footage on Monday. So I'm still jet lagged and still processing the stuff that we saw over those weeks that we were there. And then I had to go through 9.5 hours of footage that I shot, word by word. And you know, you'll know this when you're doing a documentary. You put your headphones on and you watch every single frame and you transcribe every single word that's spoken. And because I shot everything, I was shot listing as well. And the incongruity of sitting in Toronto in City TV, being transported back to where I was, and it was less the images and it was more the sounds that I found really hard to listen to. And there were definitely times that I was crying as I was looking through my footage. And that was hard. And Mel went immediately back to Iraq. And so I didn't have her there with me to say, God, you know, that's crazy what we just went through, what we just saw, and what those people have gone through. So there's a little bit, but I mean, I feel as though, I feel so, this is not corny, I feel so honored, really honored to have been there in a country and in a people's worst moment, in a country that's had a history of worst moments, and to see their strength and their humor and their generosity of the people that I met was so extraordinary. And they're touched that I would come there on my vacation and try to document and take back to Canada the stories that all of us should know about the biggest victims of ISIS, which are Muslims. I felt really so empowered and honored.
Well, it really honors their lives.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, what you've done, you've given them a voice that they otherwise wouldn't have had, which is a wonderful thing.
Well, when you talk to people, the first thing they say is, "I've lost 13 people of my family. I've lost." Everyone has stopped listening to each other there. There's no comfort for anybody of what you've lost because someone's lost more.
Yeah.
So to have somebody fresh coming in and being so affected by what you're saying about the way that you had to live or the fact that everyone in your family has been wiped out, even if all all I was able to give in that documentary was that moment of talking to them and saying, "Oh my God, that you went through that," it was worth it. It was something.
Are you able, or have you been able to stay in touch with any of the people that you met?
I have so many new brothers, I have to say, who FaceTime me. I have very little Arabic. But I can say, "Hello, how are you? I'm good. How are you? I'm good. I'm good." Yeah. Alaikum salam, salam alaikum shlonik. I mean, I do stay in touch. I became quite attached to two little boys who would sort of been adopted by the mosque. And there are many, many great stories, important stories still to be told in Iraq.
Well, that leads to my last question, which is, can you imagine going back?
Yeah, I could imagine going back. I would go back in a heartbeat.
Don't tell your mother. She better not be watching this.
I won't tell my mom. I would tell my mom. My mom she gets it. She gets it. And I think that there's the power of what we do and the ability to amplify voices that should be amplified. I think that would be a shame not to use every single opportunity as possible.
2 kilometers to terror, life and death under ISIS. Where can people watch this?
This is on City's website, so it's citynews.ca. If you type in 2 kilometers to terror, it'll pop up. I've never put together a documentary before, an hour documentary before. I've done shorter ones. And so I thought, I don't even know how to do this. I seem to remember somewhere sticky notes. So I got out like sticky notes. I thought, do people do that when you do a documentary? You write things on sticky notes? So I did this. I got all these sticky notes. I put it on. I thought, oh, this looks like the way you start a documentary. I'm really proud of the way that it turned out. I feel as though, I'll never be a beautiful shooter. There's a skill in that. But I feel as though I was able to capture some of my experience of being there.
And we're glad you came in to tell us about it tonight. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
The Agenda with Steve Bacon is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.